welcome to another Lawn Fawn video. Today we are so excited to be introducing our brand new set, Tiny Sports Friends, and its coordinating dies. We're also introducing our stadium seating dies and also our giant Go Team dies. These dies are so much fun, and we're going to be showing you some really cool ways to mix and match these with some other new products. So let's go ahead and check it out. First up, we're going to take a look at Tiny Sports Friends, and this set is so adorable and has a bunch of different types of sports featured in it. So first up, of course, we have baseball. Oh my gosh, it's just so cute. And then next up, we have football, and for each sport, we have two different characters that can kind of interact, and then some fun little accessories. So for football here, we have some goalposts, and of course, the football as well. And then we also have these little kind of travel lines, which are great behind any of the different sporting balls in this set. Next up, we have soccer with two different characters that can interact. Then, of course, we have the goal and the soccer ball. And then we have a little patch of grass, and I love this little patch of grass because it's great for setting the scene, not only for soccer, but for a lot of the other characters in this set too. And then last but not least, we have my favorite sport, which is basketball. So we have the two characters, we have our basketball hoop, and of course, our basketball too. There are also some other fun accessories. We have that little pennant that says go, and then we have some cute little clouds that help you set the scene for all of these fun little sporting activities. Now we're going to use our Copic markers to add some color to these adorable images, and I just love these Tiny Sports Friends so much. And when I color in these images, I typically use just two markers because they're really tiny areas. Honestly, you could even just use one marker and it would look awesome and make them really quick to add color to. Now, the other thing I love about the Tiny Sports Friends is it has so many opportunities to customize them for your recipient. So, of course, you could do your recipient's favorite sports team. So it could be a professional sports team, a college sports team, their high school perhaps, or let's say that your kid's in Little League. You could color in the uniforms to match the Little League uniform. So I love that there's so many fun ways to personalize these cute little characters. Then, of course, you can color the different characters in to represent different friends or family or maybe even your favorite athlete. So there's so much that you can do with these characters, and it makes them so much fun to play with. This set is the fifth in our series of Tiny Friends sets. We have the original Tiny Friends, Tiny Birthday Friends, Tiny Spring Friends, and Tiny Winter Friends. And now we have these adorable sports characters. They're really, really fun to mix and match together, and we're going to be showing you that a little bit later in the video. We are also so excited to have some different sports characters because it's been a big request over the years. Now we're going to show you a little bit later in this video how to do some sporting ideas with critters, and then of course we have these adorable tiny friends too. Now we've made our way down to the basketball Tiny Friends, and basketball is my personal favorite sport to watch, and so I decided to color in their uniforms to match my two favorite teams, which are the Golden State Warriors and the Sacramento Kings. So it's so much fun to do that and personalize these different Tiny Friends to match either your favorite teams or the recipient favorite team. And so now I'm just going to add some color here to the basketball hoop. I'm adding the little bit of red detail that's around the edge of a basketball hoop, and then just adding a little bit of gray to the hoop because it's kind of a translucent hoop. And there I did some yellow and blue in the pennant to match my Golden State Warriors. And now we have our coordinating dies, which you can bend apart at the tabs or use your wire snips to separate. We're going to take those dies and line them up with our stamped and colored images. We're going to hold that in place with some low tack tape, run it through the die cut machine, and have perfectly cut out adorable little stamped images every time. And here is a look at all of the images from the set. These images are so cute and so much fun to mix and match and have our tiny sports friends in their fun little sporting activities and kind of just putting them in different positions and creating cool cards with them. One way I love to use these tiny friends is with the four-square backdrop because you can create lots of cute little scenes. And I also love it in the interactive Flippin' Awesome card, and we're going to be creating one of those in just a little bit. But next up, I wanted to show you our brand new stadium seating die. These dies create the perfect bleachers for fans to cheer on the tiny sports friends characters. We're also going to be showing you a really fun way to use these with critters too. And so in this die set, of course, you get the bleachers. Then you also get the little bleacher part of the seat there, so you can kind of add some extra detail onto the bleacher stands. And then there's some foam fingers. We have them in a larger size and a smaller size, and I'll show you that in just a second. And then we have a fun little pennant that's perfect for cheering on your favorite team. So here's what you can do to layer on these little bleacher seats. You'll just put them on top. They're really fun to do in contrasting colors. I also really like die cutting these out of different foil cardstocks because it makes it look like bleachers in a stadium, right? Those kind of metal bleachers. That plain pennant triangle can be used on its own, or you can use it to add color to the star on this other one. So you can layer it actually right behind. So we'll add some liquid glue, and then you can layer that right behind that main pennant piece, and that's going to add a contrasting color to the star, and then you can just glue that pennant right on to that stick, and how cute is that? And it's so much fun to have either critters or tiny friends hold either both the foam fingers or that cute pennant flag. Now here is a look as to why we have two different size foam fingers. The larger foam fingers have been sized to work with a lot of our critters in different sets, and so critters can be cheering on their favorite sports team. The smaller foam fingers are perfect for all of our tiny friend characters, and you can see just how cute they look with that. They could also work really well for some of our tiny characters like our little mice too. So I love that there's the two different sizes so you can create either tiny friends cards or critters cards. Now here is a look at our giant Go Team die. This die is so cute and so much fun and perfect for creating a card for that sports fanatic, and we're going to be showing you that at the end of the video. But first up, we're going to be recreating a card by Tammy that when she texted me this card, I was blown away and I just knew that I had to remake it. It is the cutest thing and you guys are going to love it so much. And so we're going to start off with our slimline dies, and these are the largest of our slimline dies, and we're going to die cut some craft cardstock, some cilantro, and some white. And I'm just trimming off the edge of the craft and the cilantro to do some inking, and you'll see that in just a second. For our white piece, we're going to start off with tumbled glass to create our sky. And I'm just using one color, letting it be darker towards the top, and then just letting it kind of fade out to the bottom. You'll see there's some imperfections in it. I actually really like that because it makes it look like clouds in the sky. Now here is that cilantro piece, and we're going to be using some mowed lawn on this. Now I love using inking on colored cardstock because it kind of takes half of the work out for you, but it makes it look like a nice ink blended piece. So we're just going to add that color right on top and blend it into the cilantro, and quick and easy I can have some beautiful grass for my fun sports scene. Now I'm going to take some of that mowed lawn ink and just smear it onto my work surface. I'm going to spray a little bit of water, mix it up with a paintbrush, and then we'll tap the paintbrush to create splatters on the ground. And I really love the look of the splatters because it makes it have some texture so that it really does look like grass. Now the mowed lawn was kind of blending a little bit, so I took out some rustic wilderness, just a darker green, and I added some water to that, and then we're going to tap, and now we'll have some darker splatters to mix along with our lighter splatters, and I really like the mix of those two colors on there. Now we're going to repeat the same idea with our craft color cardstock. We're going to be using some vintage photo distress oxide ink this time. And once again, we're using colored cardstock to kind of be the base so that we're not doing so much work with our inking. We can just blend this vintage photo right into the craft cardstock, and that's going to look like a perfect kind of dirt kind of ground for our scene. So I think that's looking amazing. And then we're going to smear on some, I think this is some ground espresso, just a darker color. And then I'm going to add some water to that and mix it up, and we're going to tap the paintbrush for the splatters again so that this is going to look like dirt. We'll have our dirt and our grass and then our bleachers. And speaking of bleachers, we're going to take out that brand new stadium seating die, and we're going to be die cutting that from some silver metallic cardstock, which has this really cool texture that kind of reminds me of those metallic bleachers. I'm also die cutting the seats out of that same metallic, and so this case we're doing kind of like a tone on tone look, but I think that when you add the seats on there, it really gives us a really great dimension that makes it almost feel three-dimensional and really feel like bleachers at a stadium. Then here I wanted to show you what it will look like with more of a contrast. So I die cut the bleachers out of some white cardstock, and now we're going to add the seats out of that metallic silver. And so that contrast is really fun too, just kind of depending on the look that you want to go for on your card. But in this case, I want to have two sets of silver bleachers. So I've gone ahead and die cut another bleacher. Then we're going to add our liquid glue and layer on all of our seats, and we're going to have two shiny silver stadium seatings waiting for their favorite critters. And we have the perfect critters for these. This is the brand new Simply Celebrate critters. And these critters, you can do a lot with them. But guess what? They are a perfect match for these bleachers. So you can add them into the bleachers and they can be watching their favorite sports game. It's so much fun. So here you can see how you can just layer in those kitties right behind there. So I just lifted up that seat that we glued down just a little bit. I'm going to tuck the little cats underneath and then just attach the seat right on top of them. And it looks like they're kind of peering over the edges of their seats watching the game. Now I wanted to add the Simply Celebrate Critters mice onto the second seat, and they were a bit long for that, but the good thing is all you need to do is take your scissors and you can just trim off one of those cute little mice. So I'm just going to trim him right off just like that, and now we'll have a row of critters that can fit any length of the different bleacher seats, and I love being able to do that. So we've just peeled up that little seating that we put down on there, just peel that up just like that. Then I'm going to tuck the mice right behind it, and then just press it down, adhering it onto the mice, holding it all in place. And I love the look of the seats overlapping their paws a little bit because once again, it's like they're on the edge of their seats, right? And look how cute that is. Oh my gosh, I just love those Simply Celebrate critters because you just get a row of critters ready to go and it's so cute on this card. So here you can see how our bleachers are going to be up in the sky there. And now we need to trim down our grass and our dirt ground. So the dirt ground, I trimmed it down to about 3/4 of an inch to an inch or so. And we're just going to layer that right underneath. So I'm layering my bleacher on, and then I'm using that as my guide to see where the dirt needs to go. And the dirt's going to line up right with that kind of top edge of the first seat, and I can glue that right down. Then what I'm going to do is take out my ruler and just measure how much ground I have left and then just trim off my grass just like that to have a perfect fit. And you'll see there by using the same stitch slimline rectangle, we're going to have stitching that goes all of the way around, and we'll have all of our different layers, our blue sky, our brown dirt, and our green grass. Next, I'm going to take some tape runner behind those stadium seating bleachers, just add a bunch of tape runner on there and then layer these right on. So the edge of the bleachers is going to go right up to the edge of the grass, just like that. And we'll put one all the way to the left and one all of the way to the right because these are rival teams, right? Now, this next step isn't necessary because you can kind of see through bleachers, right? But there's always that shadow under the bleachers. And Tammy did this in her card, and I thought it was so cool. So what she did was she die cut the bleachers again out of black cardstock, and she's just using all of those little squares that are the interior pieces that you normally throw away. We're just going to layer those right in just like that. And now we have that really cool shadow that's always under bleachers. And there's something about doing this that just added so much to this card. And this card has a lot of little parts to it, and just adding these little details make it so much fun. So we'll do the cats, and then now we'll do the rats. I've been calling it cats versus rats on this card. So they're really mice, but you know, cats and rats rhyme, so it makes it sound really funny. So I'm going to layer that right on there, the pieces, and then we're going to layer the next one into the second row of seats. And I just love that shadow. I just feel like it really makes those bleachers pop off of this cool background that we've created. Now, I'm creating this card for my dad's birthday, and his favorite sport is football, so I'm turning this into a football field, but it could have been a soccer field too. So I went ahead and I trimmed a piece of cardstock to 1/8 of an inch wide and laid it across the top of the field. Then I took my ruler and measured below that line to see how tall I need to make all of my yard lines. So once again, I just used my paper trimmer to cut 1/8 inch strips, and now I'm just using my scissors to measure. It's about 1 3/8 inches, but if you recreated this card, just use your ruler to measure, and you know exactly how high it needs to be because nothing really needs to be exactly perfect on this card. It's going to look great no matter what. It's going to look like a football field. So now I'm going to add some tape runner behind all these little pieces, and you'll see that I didn't even cut them exactly perfectly, but it's okay because we can use our scissors to trim off any of the excess. So I'm going to add all of my yard lines about evenly spaced. I just kind of eyeballed it, and I'm going to add those onto this card all of the way down there, and now you can see that football field starting to form. And then I can take my scissors and just trim off any of those extra little pieces, and it's going to look like I measured them exactly perfectly. Now, the next thing this field needs is a football. So we're going to take out the brand new All-Star stamp set, and I'm going to use the football from this set. And later, we're going to use a sentiment from this set too. So I stamped, colored, and die cut that. And now I'm going to shop my stash for a bunch of critters. So this is really high five. We're going to take a mouse from there, a mouse from Bubbles of Joy, and we're also going to take a mouse from You Autumn Know, and some cats from both Perfectly Wicked sets. The cool thing is you can shop your stash, you can find any critters, and you can put them into these cool sports themes. In this case, football, but you could do basketball, soccer, etc., and create some really cute stuff. So I'm just going to stamp those little movement lines from the Tiny Spring Friends and then add the football with some foam squares. And now we're going to create our scene. So we're creating an interception here. The mice are intercepting the cat's throw here. So this guy's throwing the ball, and then the mouse is going to jump up and grab the football. Then we have two mice kind of in a tumble here. They fell down after trying to protect the mouse that's making the interception from the other cat. So I've kind of created this whole fun little scene here. Then we have another little mouse on the front there. He's our super fan kind of cheering. And then now I've added some of those pennant flags. So I colored one to be Florida State and the other one to be University of Miami, which is my dad's favorite team. We're originally from Miami. So I have the orange and the green, and then Florida State's one of their rivals. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing. And now I've taken a flag. This flag is actually from the Elphie selfie stamp set. We have some flags in a lot of other different sets that have a bigger area to color in. And I was able to use my orange and green markers to make the U from University of Miami on the flag. So you could do a fun flag like this. You could use the die cut flag that also comes in the stadium seating to create this as well. And you could create something for your recipient's favorite team by putting their logo or the colors of the team on these cute pennant flags. So we're adding that into the stadium there with the mice holding it. And now we're going to take the I'm Your Biggest Fan from All-Star. All-Star has a lot of really fun, cute, punny sentiments that are all sports related. We're going to stamp that in some clear embossing ink and sprinkle on some embossing powder. And this is some noble fur cardstock. So it's a nice green that's going to really go with our grass. Now we're going to heat it up with our heat tool, and you have a nice bright white shiny sentiment. And then we're just going to trim it down with our paper trimmer, and then we're going to add it onto the card. Now, once I brought it to the card, it was a little bit too tall, so I'm just trimming off some with my scissors. It was a little bit easier since it was such a thin little area I wanted to trim off to use those large scissors. And then I'm just going to tuck it right beneath the mouse's tail there, and just kind of incorporate the sentiment right into the scene. And it looks so cute with that noble fur cardstock and the white, which matches the white yard lines. Now here is my slimline card base, which is 3.5 by 8.5. We're going to add some tape runner and then add the whole scene on top. And now this card is all done, and oh my goodness, it was so much fun to make, Tammy. You are a genius. Using the Simply Celebrate critters in the stadium seating brings a whole new look to those awesome bleachers. I love that I was able to personalize it for my dad with his favorite sports team's colors, and I was able to shop my stash of critters to create a really fun sports scene using the All-Star stamp set. And oh my goodness, I mean, this was so much fun to create, and I cannot wait to see your sports scenes. Now, next up, we're going to be creating an interactive card with Tiny Sports Friends. For this interactive card, we're going to be using Flippin' Awesome, which has the coolest mechanism to it, and it's a perfect way to highlight lots of little mini scenes, which works really great for all of the different Tiny Friends sets. So here I'm going to take this decorative square that comes with the Flippin' Awesome, and I'm going to die cut some spiffy speckles cardstock, and this is going to be my square. And I'm going to die cut 4 panels because there's going to be 4 moving scenes in this card. Using that same Flippin' Awesome square die, I'm also going to die cut 4 pieces of cardstock, and we're going to be doing some ink blending on these. Now we need a grassy field, so we're starting off with some freshly cut grass ink, and I'm just ink blending over both of these squares, just making sure to kind of build up the ink and have some nice uneven areas that are darker and lighter because that's going to really make it feel like a field. Now for my football field, I need some kind of like yard lines. So we're going to be doing some tone-on-tone stenciling with the skinny stripe stencil. So I'm going to lay this right over the square and then just ink over it with the exact same ink. That way it's going to have kind of like a cool tone-on-tone look. So you'll see I'm just inking right over that stencil, and it's going to give me the perfect little kind of like yard lines onto my football field. Now to create some texture, we're going to do some splattering. So I smeared that same freshly cut grass ink onto there. I'm going to spray some water on it and then pick it up with my paintbrush and tap the paintbrush to create cool little splatters all over my two fields. Now as I started to do this, it was not enough contrast. So I took out my Noble Fir ink and I'm actually mixing the two together. So the freshly cut grass and the Noble Fir to create kind of like a medium ink, and you'll see how those splatters are sticking out just a little bit more. And I like the mixture of the lighter splatters and the darker splatters. I feel like it makes it look nice and realistic. Then the next thing we need is to create a basketball court. So to do that, we're going to be using some manatee ink, which is a nice light gray ink, and I'm going to ink that all over this piece of cardstock. I'm using a pretty light color of ink, so I kept going over, building it up over and over again to kind of create that uneven, asphalty look. Then the next thing I'm going to do is take a darker ink, which is this Hippo ink, and I'm going to smear that and spray a little bit of water, then mix it together with a paintbrush and tap my paintbrush. Then I'm going to take a darker ink, which is Storm Cloud, and I'm going to bring that in too. And I thought the two different shades of this are really going to help. So I'm mixing together the Hippo and the Storm Cloud, and now I'm tapping that. And I like the mixture of the light splatters and the dark splatters, just like we did for the grass. So they kind of coordinate in that way. Now I'm going to show you a mistake I made. I'm cutting these in half, and I went ahead and cut this one in half and realized a little bit later that I cut it the wrong direction. It doesn't work as yard lines. It was going the wrong way. So this is when I went back, I inked up another one, and then this time when I trim it, I'm turning it the other way and I'm going to trim it in half. Now the reason we're trimming in half is this is going to be the ground. So the top half is going to be the blue sky from the spiffy speckles paper, and the bottom half is going to be our green grass or our asphalt. And then any of the extra pieces that I have from trimming it in half, I'm just going to save those to create another card later on. So now I have my lines going in the right direction, and then I've got my soccer field and my baseball field and my football fields. So now we're to my favorite part, which is using the tiny sports friends to create these cute little scenes. So I'm going to take all the characters that we colored, stamped, and die cut at the beginning of the video and lay them out to start creating the scenes. I've also stamped and die cut a bunch of suns from the All the Clouds stamp set. I love this set because it's the perfect for scene building, and so that tiny little sun is just great for these scenes. So I'm going to start off with my soccer field, and so those vertical lines we created are kind of functioning as those like light and dark grass lines that are in a soccer field, and then they're kind of looking like yard lines for our football field. So they're really working for both, which is really great. Now I'm adding my two little characters, the soccer with those little movement lines, and then we're going to add the little tiny clouds, and those clouds might be some of my favorite things from the Tiny Sports Friends set. The tiny clouds are just so sweet. And then I'm going to layer the sun from the All the Clouds stamp set behind those tiny little clouds. And then now we can move on to our next scene. So next up, we're working on baseball. So once again, I'm just going to use all of the cute little images that are included for the different types of sports. So we're going to put home plate in there, we're going to put the baseball, and then I'm going to put those movement lines in just a little bit. But first we've got to fill up the clouds there in the sky. We've got our clouds, we've got the sun again, and as I do each scene, I'm just putting the clouds in different positions. Now today we're recreating a card by Maureen, so thank you so much, Maureen, because this card was just so cute and it was so much fun to create. So now we're working on our football scene. We've got our goal posts. We're going to add our clouds into the sky and keep forming the scene. There's something about that little sun peeking out from the cloud that just makes me smile. I finally found some more movement lines, so I went and added those to the baseball, and now I'm going to add my basketball hoop and add my basketball players here into the asphalt, which is just looking so cool. And I love that all the scenes kind of match because of the splatters, which kind of ties them all together and then ties them into that spiffy speckles sky. We're adding our basketball movement lines and of course some more clouds and sunshine into the skies to kind of help fill the scenes and once again tie all the different scenes together. Now it's time to start working on the Flippin' Awesome mechanism, and if you've never made a Flippin' Awesome card, make sure to check out the Intro to Flippin' Awesome video. We'll link it in the description below. So here's our main Flippin' Awesome piece, and here you can see the die, and it has a bunch of score lines that the die creates for you, and so we're going to be folding along those score lines, and we're going to fold along them in both directions. And the reason we're doing this is to make sure that our Flippin' Awesome mechanism works and moves really, really well. So we're going to fold it in one direction, and then we're going to fold it in the other. And if you do this, it's just a nice little trick to really make the action be awesome on your Flippin' Awesome. One of the cool things about the Flippin' Awesome is that it can be horizontal or vertical. So for this one, we're going to make a vertical one. So I'm going to place the mechanism in this vertical position. It's almost going to look like an upside down T. And I'm going to put my last image first, which sounds a little funny, but the last one is the one that's completely adhered down. So I'm going to put adhesive all over the back and adhere that down permanently to that bottom little square underneath that very bottom score line, just like that. Then next up, we're going to do something kind of fun. We're going to take our flower market paper here and we're going to die cut it with that same square. And we're going to add this flower market paper on the back. When you move the Flippin' Awesome, you can actually see the back of all these cards. And while I actually really like that white spiffy speckle, Maureen added this yellow to the back, and I thought it looked like the sun just shining down on each of the sports scenes. It looks really cool, and you'll see it once we put it all together. So I love that you could put any color paper behind these or different color papers, make a rainbow, etc. And you can definitely double up these, and the Flippin' Awesome is still going to work great. So we'll add tape runner to the back of each of our sports scenes, and then we're going to add our paper on to the back with that beautiful diagonal, beautiful sunshiny yellow color. So now we're going to head back to the Flippin' Awesome mechanism. And remember, we had it in that vertical position, almost looking like an upside down T, and we added that very bottom scene fully adhered to the bottom. That's why we didn't need to add the yellow paper to the back of that one. Now for the next one, we're going to add some tape runner in between those two score lines, and then we're going to attach the next one, lining up with that upper score line, just like that. What we're going to be doing is just adhering the very top of these last three squares so that the bottom part will be able to move. So now we'll repeat that. We're going to add our tape runner between those next two score lines, and then we're going to take this square and we're going to line it up right with that upper score line and attach it down onto the tape. Once again, we're just adhering part of it, not the whole thing, because 3 of these squares are going to move and the bottom one is going to stay fully adhered. So now we'll repeat one more time. We're going to add our tape runner, and then we're going to add our last panel to the top, lining it up with that very, very top score line. Now we can pick up our Flippin' Awesome mechanism, and we're going to be folding it in half right along the top of that football panel that we added. So we're going to fold it just like that behind it. And then there's these 2 little pieces on the side. Those are going to bend and hug around the whole thing. So I just lightly bended them and hugged them around. But before we attach that anywhere, we need to make something to attach it to. So we're actually going to take out the mini slimline dies, which are a perfect match for Flippin' Awesome, which is really cool because Flippin' Awesome came out a few years ago and the mini slimline dies are more recent. So we're going to die cut some really rainbow paper, and with one of the smaller dies, we're going to die cut some vellum. And that vellum is going to kind of nestle right in between those stitched lines. It's going to look really pretty. But with vellum, you can see the adhesive through it. So we're going to adhere things to the front of the vellum, and then we're going to find a place to be able to hide our adhesive behind them in a second. So this is the brand new giant UR number 1 die, and I thought this was so clever that what Maureen did is she wanted a number 1, and so she took it from this. So I'm just taking my scissors and carefully cutting around these 2 pieces, and we've cut them from both black cardstock and white cardstock because we're going to layer those 2 together, and we'll make a little shadow with the white that's going to help it pop off of our panel. So I'll add some liquid glue to the white one, and then I'm just going to add the black one offset just a little to the right, and that shadow you can see just really makes the number sign and the letter pop. Now here you'll see I'm using the brand new jumbo glue tube, and I'll be showing you that in a video in the future. It's really awesome. We added some liquid glue to the back, and then we're going to layer that right at the top of that slimline panel, that small slimline panel. Now we're going to take some 1/4-inch double-sided adhesive and we're going to put it on those tabs. So you'll see they're sticking out kind of like an upside down T again. And we're just going to add 2 pieces of the adhesive to fully cover the front of those. Then once we do that, we can peel up the liner paper on both pieces on both sides. And then just like we did a little bit before, we're going to take these 2 little T-shaped pieces and we're going to hug them around the whole mechanism. So you'll see they're going to hug all the way around the back and not super tight because we want this to be able to move. So I'm just lightly hugging them, and then we're going to line this up on our mini slimline panel and we're going to adhere it down. And so the Flippin' Awesome is actually only adhered down by those 2 little tabs, which is why I really like to use that nice strong tape for it. Now the Flippin' Awesome comes with this cute little decorative T-shaped piece there, and that's going to be the kind of informative tab, right? It's got the little arrow that's going to tell the recipient they can pull it, and how cool is that? Oh, I love it so much. So right now I wanted to do some stamping on this panel here. So I'm going to take out the All-Star stamp set and I'm going to stamp "You're an All-Star Dad" because I'm making this for my dad for Father's Day because I'm so excited for having all this sports stuff for him. I get to make up some such cool cards now. Now the All-Star stamp set also has this really cute trophy and the stars in it as well. So I'm going to layer those all onto this panel that comes out at the end because that gives you kind of like the rest of the sentiment with the number one, "You're an All-Star Dad." Now that we've attached things to the front of the vellum panel, we have a place to hide our adhesive on the back. So I'm going to flip that over and we're going to add a bunch of tape runner to the area where the Flippin' Awesome mechanism is. And then for the number one, I ended up deciding to just do some glue dots. I could have done some liquid glue as well, but I just had the glue dots there on my desk, so I decided to use them. So I'm just going to layer those on there. And then I can take this whole thing and attach it onto the rainbow paper. And I love the look of vellum kind of diffusing pattern paper. I just think it's so pretty. Then we're going to have a card base, and this card base is 3 inches by 6 inches, which is our mini slimline size. And we're going to add some tape runner onto that, and then we can layer the whole panel on the front. Now, next up, I want to show you a flippin' awesome trick. So every once in a while, if you put a bunch of die cuts on this piece that's being pulled out, sometimes when you go to put it back, it gets stuck a little bit. So you see it just kind of gets stuck, especially because those stars are pointy. They're kind of just right at the wrong angle. So my trick for that is the acetate trick. So I've cut the Flippin' Awesome mechanism from some acetate, and then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just trimming right above that first score line. Doesn't have to be exact, I'm just using my scissors and we're going to trim it just like that. Next, I'm going to take some 1/4-inch double-sided adhesive and add it to the very top of the acetate piece, just right where we trimmed it off with our scissors. Then we're going to peel up that liner paper and we'll take the acetate piece and I'm just going to tuck it right into that little pocket that the Flippin' Awesome mechanism creates. So we're going to tuck it so that that adhesive is completely hidden by that pocket, and you'll know it's in perfect placement when the two tabs, the acetate piece and that pretty pattern paper there, both line up. Then we can press down and secure it in place. And you'll see as we push this up, now we're going to have a nice slick movement. So you don't need to do this acetate trick every single time, but if you have a die cut that's getting stuck, just like mine was that time, this is a perfect trick to make it work really well. So I added a little piece of adhesive down at that bottom tab and I adhered it down there. And now I can cover up that adhesive with that cool little triangle pull tab. And I'm going to add a little dot of glue in the center and then just inlay a little triangle out of some white cardstock there. And that's going to cover up that adhesive so you can't see it and give the recipient a cool note that says, "Hey, pull on this tab. Something cool is about to happen." And oh my goodness, how fun is this card? I love that we get to see all the different sports, which is perfect for someone like my dad that just loves all the sports, right? It's such a fun way also to highlight the Tiny Friends characters. Any of the characters would look really, really cute in this Flippin' Awesome, and they are so much fun to make. And I just keep playing with it over and over again because it's just so cool. I just kept filming and I just kept pulling the tab because it was just so awesome. So I cannot wait to see if you guys create any Flippin' Awesomes with this Tiny Sports Friends. If you do, make sure to share it with us. Next up, Shari is creating the cutest card featuring her favorite sports team. And I love how she's going to use Tiny Friends with the brand new stadium seating bleachers. It's so cool. So take it away, Shari.
So I'm making a card today that's inspired by a card that Kara created. I'm using the Tiny Sports Friends along with the Tiny Friends and then also that little dog from Tiny Birthday Friends. So she made a card for the Packers, and I am changing this up to be my football team, which is the North Carolina State University Wolfpack. So I've got them all colored and cut out. They're all in their red and white, ready for a football game. And I need to create my sky first, or my background. I've got a piece of Bristol cardstock cut with the largest stitch rectangle, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I'm going to use the cloudy stencil to create a really light cloudy sky. I'm using some kiddie pool ink and my blending brush to just add some really light clouds to the sky. I don't want it to be too distracting because I do want this to be mostly red and white and black because those are the team colors. So I'm just going to speed the video up a little bit so the sky doesn't take too long. But I'm using the different clouds and I'm just pulling it down and shifting the clouds around so that it's not very repetitive and I get a different cloud pattern each time. And you can see that I'm only pulling the ink up off the edge of the clouds and I'm not going all the way up to the next one so that I still have some white on the underside of the cloud line up above. So I'm just working my way down all the way to the bottom, and then this will be my last line of clouds because the very bottom of this will be covered up with some green pattern paper for some grass. So I don't need to worry about going all the way to the bottom with my clouds. Now I can work on my sentiment. I'm using the giant Go Team. I've cut it from black and from red, and I'm just going to cut the team part off of my red so I have a red Go to layer over the black team. In Kara's card, she actually used the skinny stripe stencil to make striped letters. So I just thought I would show a different way of using the sentiment die. So I'll just add some liquid glue to the back of that word go and layer that on top. And now I have a 2-colored die cut sentiment. Now for my grass, I'm using that really bright green paper from the Really Rainbow paper pack. I'm cutting it with that same stitch rectangle that the background is cut from so I get that stitching detail along the bottom and the sides. And then I'm going to lay it here to figure out how high up to cut my grassy border. I'm using the stadium seating, so I'm just going to actually lay the die here and figure out about how high I want that grass to be, and then I can run that through my die cut machine and I have some grass for the ground. I cut the main stadium seating from some narwhal cardstock, and then for the bleacher part I cut that from some silver metallic cardstock. So I'll just layer those on each of those wide pieces of the stadium seating die, and that's where the bleachers go. I'm just making sure it is stuck down really well by using my bone folder to apply some pressure, and that actually kind of evens out some of the creases that I got from die cutting. Makes it look a little bit smoother. Most of this is going to be covered up by all those little people that I colored though, so you're just going to get those little glimpses of the metallic through all those people in the crowd sitting in the stands. So I'm adding this whole background piece to my card base. I added the grass along the bottom, and then I've laid my stadium seating here so I can get my spacing right and put my Go Team right above it. So I want to make sure that I have enough space to where I'm still going to see the sentiment above all the people once they're in the stands. And then now I can add my stands to my card. And Kara had the goalposts up in the O, which I thought was super cute. So I'm adding that as well. And then also there's that big football that I'll add going through the goalposts later. There is a little tiny football, but I like that big football she used from All Star. So here's all my little people that I've colored. I've combined some of the sports friends to sit in the stands as well, like this one here, because they had their hands up, which I thought was really fun to add the little Go pennants that were also in the Tiny Sports Friends. But of course, I have my football players that are down on the bottom on the field, so I've got 2 of those. And then I'm going to go and sort of lay out where I want them all to be before I start gluing them all down. And once I've kind of got an idea, I am going to start gluing them down so I don't bump this and all my little people go flying. And I'm trying to start at the back and then layer the ones in front that will be on top of the ones in the back. And it's good to kind of stagger them so that you don't have them right in front of one another. You kind of have their heads between the two people that are behind them. That way you can see everybody and everybody can see the football game. These two little girls in the front are cute. I colored their skirts with stripes. Kara did that as well, so they look like the cheerleaders. And then I also have die cut out of the same red cardstock these small foam fingers. These are also from the stadium seating die set. There's some big ones and some small ones, and these small ones fit these little people perfectly. And here's another one from the sports set, the ones with the stars on their jerseys. I just thought that was fun to have the little star. I'm just trying to figure out where to put my second pennant that I had. So I decided to put it down here where this little girl has her hand out. I can add my little cheerleader girls here at the end. I need to figure out how to create some fun pom-poms for them. And then finally, I colored the dogs because State is the wolf pack, and we have Mr. and Mrs. Wolf. So I have Mr. Wolf there, and the one with the birthday hat, I stamped out a bow from one of the other stamp sets, and I added that. So this is Mrs. Wolf, and I'm just putting them together because they are the mascots that we have at the football games. I also have these extra die cut pennants. These are from the stadium seating die set, and I'm layering the white behind the red so I get a white star and a red pennant. I did cut another foam finger to kind of balance things out. I'm adding a foam square to that big football from All Star, and then what I decided to do with my pennants, which is a little different than Kara's, is kind of do a double one. When you go tailgating, you see a lot of big flags on the cars where people are out cooking out, and I just thought this was kind of a fun nod to that and gave it a nice balance with a little more height on that left side. So I added one, and then I trimmed off the pole of the second one, and I'm just going to sort of stack them. And I like that it hangs off the left side of the card as well. And then also I have these little lines like the football being kicked through the goalpost. And then that is my finished NC State Go Team card with my red and white people everywhere and Mr. and Mrs. Wolf ready for the football game.
This card is just so cute, Shari. It just makes me smile. And next up, we have some amazing cards by the design team. And first up, I thought it would be fun to take a look at Kara's card that inspired Shari to make hers. And you can see the fun details that she added to make this a Packers card. So you can imagine how you could take your favorite team and create some really cute and fun things. Next up, this card by Elena is so sweet, and I love that she used the 4-square backdrop to highlight some really cute scenes with her tiny sports friends. Callie combined the giant You Are Number 1 die with these adorable soccer playing characters from Tiny Sports Friends, and I just love the background that she created. This card by Mindy is so fun, and she used our brand new sunray stencil to create a really cool kind of sunrise look behind our awesome sports teams. Here's the incredible card by Tammy that inspired me to make mine today. She did hers a Cal versus Stanford card, so I love that you can really mix and match the teams. This card by Mindy is so sweet. I love the stars that she put in the background. They're just perfect for this set. And then here is the card by Maureen that inspired me to make mine. I just love this idea of the flippin' awesome, and it was so cool how she created her fields using that awesome skinny stripe stencil. And then last but not least, we have this super cute card by Lynette that I just adore, and I love how she has the stadium seating and the You Are Number 1 up top with all the different Tiny Sports Friends all around. So we cannot wait to see what you create with all of these fun new products, so make sure to share them with us. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have an absolutely amazing day. Bye!